1849. The Chunar Fort, Uttar Pradesh, India.
This is not a gigantic fort. It's not a very nice fort.
A lonely place on the bank of the river Ganges. Inside was a prisoner.
This is a young woman, but she's weathered by now through the many things that she has seen.
Maharani Jindan Kaur was the last queen of the great Sikh Empire in Punjab. She'd been imprisoned here for a year, 2,000 kilometres from her home in Lahore. By order of the British East India Company, she was kept alone.
She will not have access to people coming in and out or the bustle of the town around her. She is to be isolated. This very small, very young, pretty woman is a threat to the British Empire.
Most of all, she was being kept from her son, Duleep Singh, the Maharaja of the Sikh Empire. He was just 10 years old.
He has no siblings. He has no father. He has no uncles, aunts, or extended family who can take care of him. And ostensibly, everybody who wants any power left from the Sikh kingdom wants to kill him.
Jindan was focused on getting back to her son.
She stayed veiled so that the people who were guarding her would not be able to recognize who she was.
Occasionally, she was visited by a seamstress.
And one day, she exchanged clothes with the seamstress and just walked out of the fort. Under the noses of all of this guard set by the East India Company, set by the people, in the fort and others, she just walked out.
She left a note behind for the British authorities,
which basically said, do what you want, but, I'm out. With my black magic, I made all of this happen.
The East India Company had a dangerous enemy on the loose.
She is far more powerful than they give her credit for.
For BBC Radio 4, this is History's Heroes. People with purpose, brave ideas, and the courage to stand alone. I'm Alex Von Tunzelmann. I'm a historian, and today's episode is about Jindan Kaur, the last great queen of the Sikh Empire. A woman who struck fear into the hearts of the men of the British East India Company.
She's known variously, right? Some people call her Jinda, some people call her Jind Kaur. Then, of course, Rani Jind Kaur and Maharani Jind Kaur.
Harleen Singh is Professor of Literature and Gender Studies at Brandeis University. Traditionally, Sikh men take the religious name Singh, meaning lion. Sikh women take Kaur, meaning princess. However, some Sikhs now use these names as Western-style surnames.
She is mostly known as the last queen of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, who was the king of the only Sikh empire known in history, and as the last person to have worn the Kohinoor diamond sometimes. In India, sorry to say that, in India, because of course the Kohinoor is worn in England after that.
This queen's beginnings are obscure. She was born in around 1817.
It's very difficult to pinpoint an exact date of birth for her because women at that point in time in the early 19th century, no one is keeping track of when they are born.
Her father was a kennel keeper for Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the founder of the Sikh Empire.
And people say that because Maharaja Ranjit Singh was very fond of his stables, as his kennels, his horses, and his dogs, that he really spent a lot of time in those areas. And so the story goes that it was there that her father began to talk about the fact that he had this really beautiful daughter.
In 1835, Jindan Kaur married the Maharaja.
She would have been 16, 17, so she is very, very young. But he, of course, is in his much later years. He's about 55 years old.
He was not the handsomest of kings. His face was pockmarked from a bout of smallpox as a child, which also left him blind in one eye. But Ranjit Singh was a legendary warrior and a charismatic leader, a man who'd made his own empire.
Until him, you have a lot of clans and you have a lot of seats of power and a lot of different smaller kingdoms and smaller areas that people, have. But he is the first one and the only one, to bring them all together and be proclaimed the king of the Sikh Empire.
Ultimately, Ranjit Singh ruled over lands that now form parts of Pakistan, northwest India, Kashmir, and up to Afghanistan and Nepal. But his was a new dynasty, and he had to secure it. In order to do that, he married many times. Jinda was his last wife.
She's either the 46th wife or the 20th wife or the 16th wife or so on and so forth, because there are varying accounts of how many wives he had.
His heir apparent, Karak Singh, was the son of his second wife. But Karak Singh was not in great health. That meant Ranjit Singh needed more sons.
Many people believe by this point in time that he might have been impotent by the time he married her, and therefore the need to have younger and younger wives in the hope that there would be more heirs.
The wedding ceremony was not especially romantic.
There are various ways of getting married at this point in time. For Kaur and Maharaja Ranjit Singh, we know that he sent his dagger and arrow to her home because he couldn't come himself.
Jinda took her place in the Maharaja's great harem.
Not everybody who was in the harem was a wife. So you had, the term concubine is odd in some ways. He had wives, but he also had people he was fond of in various ways.
The wives, though they all ranked as Ranis or queens, were not equals.
There was a hierarchy because, of course, he didn't marry them all at the same time.
Jinda was at the bottom of the pile.
The senior Ranis had apartments, etc. She would probably have just come into a room. She would have been given a room and maybe one servant, one maid, at the most.
It could be a daunting environment.
I don't believe she was treated very well.
Nonetheless, she and Ranjit Singh enjoyed some happy times.
He delights in her. He delights in her being young. He delights in her energy. They do go away together. And the fact that he realizes that she's being mistreated, that he sends emissaries to her to help her. And, he can't be seen to be protecting her too much, because that also, if she becomes his favorite too visibly, that would also be a threat to her life from the other Ranis.
In time, Jinda settled into court life.
A lot of these old palaces and areas in North India have two layers, where you have the court and where the men would have sat talking to each other. But then you have almost a latticed area where either there's a stone lattice or a kind of curtains and tapestries behind which the women would have sat. So they would have been able to see what is going on in court, but the men in court would not have been able to see them.
Jinda Kaur's fortunes changed in September 1838 when she gave birth to a son. Duleep Singh was a minor heir with several brothers ahead of him, but he was still an heir and had the potential to become important. Jinda doted on her child.
I would like to imagine that these are a few years where they actually have a quiet life, where the two of them have each other, where they can somehow be separated from the intrigue of the court.
Meanwhile, Maharaja Ranjit Singh lived it up.
He is known for a voracious appetite in all senses. He drank a lot, he ate a lot. He also was given to an opium habit.
Just a year after Duleep Singh was born, the Maharaja's health began to falter. He died at the end of June 1839.
And what follows is a mixture of Hindu and Sikh rites, and that's about it. And the end is peaceful. The end is peaceful.
Ranjit Singh's heir, Karak Singh, became the new Maharaja.
Even though all of his courtiers swear fealty to Maharaja Ranjit Singh, they swear to protect his heirs and to protect the kingdom, I think the court begins to recognize that with his death, his sons don't really possess the same strength that he had.
The Sikh Empire was a relatively new kingdom in a region with many rivals. One of them was the British East India Company, the mercantile company that had taken control of much of India, with varying levels of involvement from the British government. Now, the company controlled territory stretching right up to the border of the Sikh Empire.
You have the British making small inroads in various ways. Subsidiary alliances, establishing little forts, talking about trade, promising protection to one kingdom against another, so on and so forth.
The Sikh Empire was well defended by its geography as well as its people.
This is really all seen as the far more rugged, far more uncontrollable, not so easy to conquer area. It's strategic, it's something the British want, but it's not something that they can get easily.
But Kaur Singh couldn't hold on to it either. He was quickly deposed in a palace coup. Months later, he was found dead.
The rumors are that, he comes to the throne but is poisoned. We are not quite sure what happens, who does this, and how it happens, but he dies very quickly.
His teenage son, now Nihal Singh, became the new Maharaja.
And Nihal Singh also, this is the strangest part. He's only on the throne for a day and then he dies in a suspicious accident.
Ruling the Sikh Empire was a risky business.
He's been on the throne and then he walks out and somehow in the celebration some stones have come loose and they fall on him and he dies.
There was a power struggle between Nihal Singh's mother, Chand Kaur, and his uncle, Sher Singh.
He gains possession of the throne, but he then is assassinated by his own cousins.
Chand Kaur was also murdered by her own servants.
It's mayhem in, very clear terms, but it's confusion. Everything is running amok at this point in time.
Suddenly, attention turned to Rani Jindan and her son, Duleep Singh.
And they say, oh, well, he's 5 years old. We can put him on the throne because really, how much of a threat will he be?
Courtiers thought Jindan Kaur could be easily pushed around.
She's a young woman. She was his last wife. What does she know? She's not, really experienced in the ways of the court. She will be, an easy pawn as far as they're concerned.
And so in September 1843, little Duleep Singh was proclaimed the Maharaja of the Sikh Empire. Jindan Kaur became the Maharani and his regent, ruling for him. The new Maharani and her son faced a complex situation.
The empire is in such disarray. All of the courtiers, the people who have their own, little fiefdoms, the peerage, so to speak, and others, they're looking after themselves and they're looking after their own areas.
Until now, Jindan Kaur had been almost invisible to the men at court, shielded always by a curtain or a veil. Now, she needed some of those men as her allies. She appointed her brother Jawar Singh as wazir, or chief minister.
She's trying to kind of hold the kingdom together and keep it, intimate and strong by keeping her family members in place.
The Sikhs had an incredibly powerful fighting force, the Khalsa.
They're a Sikh army and not just the army of the kingdom.
The Khalsa were not easy to keep in check.
And so they begin to see what is happening with the Sikh kingdom after the death of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. This jockeying for power as letting down the kind of sacred faith.
Maharani Jindan Kaur knew she needed to keep the Khalsa loyal to her and her son. If she failed, that could mean death for both of them. This was no joke. All of the men and women who tried to rule the Sikh Empire since Maharaja Ranjit Singh's death had been killed very quickly. But Jindan had a special sort of power.
Being the youngest Rani, the last one really to be close to Maharaja Ranjit Singh. In some ways, she carries within her that bodily, that physicality of Maharaja Ranjit Singh because she is seen to be the last vestige of his virility and vigor.
For the Khalsa, she became almost a symbol of faith.
They rally around her.
On formal occasions, young Maharaja Duleep Singh sat with his mother behind him, screened from view. But now, Maharani Jindan Kaur began to emerge into the light herself. Sometimes she pulled back the veil to address the men directly, face to face.
Maybe it was because of her humble beginnings, because she knew that she'd have to find a spot, to survive, not just to become the queen, that you begin to see some of that scrappy nature coming forth when she becomes a regent.
She was beautiful. And in a place where women were never seen, The effect of showing herself was powerful.
She wants very much for her son to be taken seriously as a body and not just a name. And I think that it's important for her to be there with her son, because what really is a 5-year-old going to do, faced with a court full of men? And she knows that by being there, she can lend that kind of weight to his seat on the throne.
The Khalsa wanted more than symbolism. They started to demand higher wages. And Duleep Singh soon had a rival, his half-brother, Peshora Singh. Peshora Singh declared himself Maharaja in 1845. Maharani Jindan's brother Jawar gave orders that he should be captured and killed. Peshora Singh was strangled to death. This made the Khalsa furious. They summoned Jawar Singh and murdered him in front of his sister, Maharani Jindan Kaur.
This becomes kind of a good moment for the British to come in, because they have really been using the instability in many different kingdoms to come in and say, well, this kingdom can't govern itself, so we need to come in for the stability of the empire and stability of the kingdom and take over.
Tensions between the East India Company and the Sikhs had been growing, especially along the border. At the end of 1845, these tipped over into the First Anglo-Sikh War.
The British are afraid that the Khalsa army, which is a very, very strong force, that if it runs amok, it will be a direct threat to British stability in the region. So that becomes, in some ways, the ostensible reason for the British coming in and saying, you guys can't govern yourselves, this whole place is going crazy, and you've got a really strong army, right?
3 months later, the company claimed victory. The Treaty of Lahore, which followed, effectively broke up the Sikh Empire. The company demanded war reparations from the Sikhs. When they could not pay, it took huge stretches of territory, including Kashmir and Hazara. The company sold Kashmir to another Sikh Raja, Duleep Singh, who was a British ally. Meanwhile, they kept Maharaja Duleep Singh on the throne of the Punjab.
And Rani Jindan remains his regent.
The East India Company set about taking more and more power from the young Maharaja. But his mother proved harder to control.
Rani Jindan seems to exert enough power and is strong enough that people begin to perceive her as a threat. That she won't just be quiet and let either Duleep Singh come of age or the British come into the kingdom, but that somehow she is a threat that needs to be silenced on all sides.
Maharani Jindan Kaur attempted to unite powerful Sikh leaders around her as head of government. This was an open threat to the East India Company's power. Soon enough, the usual slanders levelled against powerful women started to be voiced.
So there were all of these rumors about her promiscuity. She is seen to be in open conspiracy to take on many different lovers and promise them power and so on and so forth. She's besmirched as an immoral human being.
The East India Company brought in a British resident, supposedly to protect the Maharaja. In August 1847, the company declared that it had become absolutely necessary to separate the Maharaja from the Maharani, his mother. Maharani Jindan Kaur was then about 30. Maharaja Duleep Singh was just 8 years old.
There is, of course, not just in this case, but in many different cases, the twin strands of both conquest and benevolent colonialism. In this particular instance, being able to mark Rani Jindan as an amoral, unfit mother allowed the British to come in as guardians of the young prince, the young king.
The British resident had Maharani Jindan locked up in a tower of the Lahore fort. Soon she was moved to a fortress outside the city, creating yet more distance between her and her son. Maharani Jindan wrote to the British resident, pleading to be reunited with her son. April 1848. In the city of Multan, a Sikh rebellion began against the East India Company. The British identified Maharani Jindan Kaur as the rallying point of the rebellion. This rebellion precipitated the Second Anglo-Sikh War. With Punjab erupting, the company now felt it was too dangerous to let Jindan Kaur stay there. She was stripped of her valuable jewellery and moved to the Chunar fort near Benares, now Varanasi, in faraway Uttar Pradesh. But she would not be held. That was the fort from which Maharani Jindan Kaur escaped, dressed as a servant. An alert was put out all over India, but Jindan Kaur had disappeared. 10 days later, she surfaced in Kathmandu in Nepal.
This is a journey of over 500 kilometers.
Historians don't know how she got there or what happened to her on the journey.
I imagine that she really weathered a lot of things along the way. Was it unwanted attention? Was it assault? Was it, robbery? We don't know.
As a high-ranking Maharani, Jindan Kaur was given refuge by the Nepalese, but they didn't want trouble.
The Nepalese royal family is happy to shelter a fellow queen in distress, but they are not ready to put in arms and ammunition or resources towards her rebellion or whatever she has in mind.
The East India Company decided it could live with her being there, as long as she didn't return to Punjab. Meanwhile, the company won the Second Anglo-Sikh War. In March 1849, Maharaja Duleep Singh was deposed and the company annexed the Punjab. He was still only 10 years old. Duleep Singh was entrusted to the care of a Scottish guardian, John Logan. As part of the peace arrangements, the Kohinoor diamond was surrendered to Queen Victoria. A few years later, in 1854, Logan took Duleep Singh, now 15 years old, into exile, still further away from his mother, Jindan Kaur.
He is taken off to England. She is off in Nepal. And in many ways, it really suits the British design at that point in time to have both these people around whom the Sikh kingdoms or the Sikh community can actually organize to be out of the country.
Jindan Kaur tried to stay in touch with her son.
She's writing letters to him. She's trying to get, some communication across to him. Not always successful because everything, of course, has to go through the British.
In England, Duleep Singh was warmly welcomed by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. He was growing into a strikingly handsome young man. The Queen and Prince Consort invited him to stay with their family. Jindan Kaur was devastated.
She's, of course, bereft. The only living soul she can be connected to, her son, is away in England. He has converted to Christianity. News of that has reached her.
In Britain, Duleep Singh was given a lavish lifestyle and a huge pension from the government. He travelled around Europe and moved into a 16th century castle in Scotland.
That's a particular kind of benevolent colonialism, allowing the royalty in India to recognize that there was a way for them to be royal and in conversation with British royalty if they were only to give up their open rebellion, their kingdoms, their armies, and of course, their jewels.
Prince Albert was disappointed by the reception that the Kohinoor diamond received from the British public. Traditional Indian jewellers cut with the natural shape of the stone, preserving its size and organic beauty. European jewellers cut for brilliance. Albert had the Kohinoor recut in the European style, reducing it to nearly half its former size and rendering it unrecognisable. Afterwards, Queen Victoria took to wearing it. As he grew older, Duleep Singh started to long for his mother.
He does get permission finally from the British to come to India, ostensibly on a tiger hunt or whatever.
At the beginning of 1861, Duleep Singh travelled to Calcutta. India was no longer under the rule of the East India Company. That had ended after the Great Rebellion of 1857. Now, India was under the British Raj, ruled by the British government. At last, the British authorities allowed mother and son to meet again.
It's been a terrible decade for both of them.
Maharani Jindan Kaur was only in her early 40s, but she was in poor health and her sight was going.
One of the first things she must have noticed about him would have been that he no longer has his long hair. or the turban and what that must have meant. But from most accounts, it seems like she was heartbroken, that there was a minute of, a kind of distance between them. And she said, who are you? Like, where's my son? What has happened to you?
The British feared that even now, the last Maharani and Maharaja of the old Sikh Empire might inspire old passions.
They were taken out of Calcutta and, rushed to England because, the viceroy feared that there were so many Sikhs amassing around them. They feared that some kind of open rebellion was going to break out.
Maharani Jindan Kaur lived in Britain with her son, refusing to be separated from him again. She also got much of her jewellery back, but not the Kohinoor. Under her influence, Duleep Singh began to question how he'd been deprived of his birthright. In 1863, aged in her mid-40s, Maharani Jindan Kaur died at her home in Kensington, London.
They were together, right? She did die with him. And this, in Punjabi culture, is a big thing. Mothers as mothers-in-law and et cetera, want to die in their son's house. That they feel after their husband's house, this is the house that belongs to them, that this is where they belong.
In the years following his mother's death, Duleep Singh converted back to Sikhism. He also tried to return to India, once getting as far as the Arabian Peninsula. But the British authorities intercepted him and forced him to return to Europe. He even went to Russia to try to persuade the Tsar to invade India and reinstall him. It was a hopeless cause. Duleep Singh died in Paris in 1893 at the age of 55. His mother, Maharani Jindan Kaur, may have been thwarted by the East India Company and the British, but she's remembered as the last great queen of the Punjab who fought her whole life for her empire and her son.
I think her legacy was one of finding your voice, of finding that you have a voice no matter what your circumstances. Women often live in silence. And in many ways, this is the other side of silence, which is that we've had all of these voices in history, but we have not really paid attention to them.